We are at the 2019 National Association of Music Merchants.
Welcome to the show. Here's your host, it's Annie Talk.
Hello everybody and welcome to Annie Talks. I'm your host Annie Rivera. If you're brand new to my channel, thank you so much for stopping by. And if you've been here before, as always, thank you and welcome back. We are at the 2019 National Association of Music Merchants. And
Say that 3 times fast.
National Association of Music
I knew you couldn't do it.
We're at NAMM. There you go.
There you go.
NAMM. Okay. I am here with Kris Traynor, who is the audio engineer extraordinaire, and he is the founder and owner of Red Light Fever Studios, which happens to be our location of choice for our Sandwich Islands Network Radio's B93FM.com radio session. So, Kris, that was a mouthful.
That was amazing. How you remembered all that? I would have never remembered all
that. Well,
I can barely get red light fever out.
Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for talking to me.
You know, let me just say that Kris was my booth. No, I shouldn't say booth buddy. He was my NAMM buddy the entire day. We brave the elements. We've been through.
We're both deaf too because it's so loud here.
We are.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we have stories to tell. That's a whole nother podcast.
That's hours of podcast. Yeah. You don't want to hear it.
Yeah, for sure. But Kris, thank you so much for being here. I've learned so much about Kris, and he's just you've got to tap into the mind because he's very knowledgeable in everything he talks about, everything he's done with audio engineering. He's a drummer also.
Yes, I am.
I mean, there's some
people think drummers are musicians, some don't. So I'm just a drummer, not a musician.
Well, he's just, he's Kris extraordinaire to me. So I just love him.
Thank you very much.
But thank you so much for being here and being my guest. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
So let's start with, now we talked a little bit about who you are, Kris, the audio engineer. I don't want to keep saying that because I know that's not his title per se. There's so much about him that we need to know about. So I'm going to turn it over to him right now so you can learn a little bit more about who Kris is, his background and his upbringing and all that stuff. So Kris, why don't you give a sense of who you are?
Well, I was born in Burlingame, California, if you want to go that far back. Okay. I won't say what year.
Okay.
Went to school there until I was I think kindergarten through first grade or so. I can't remember.
Okay.
Then my parents moved to Yuma, Arizona.
Oh, okay.
I went to Yuma, Arizona, I think first or second grade, all the way to junior high school. I was out in the desert. I don't know if you've been to Yuma. If so, I apologize. You wasted your time. Then from there, my parents got another teacher. They were both teachers. My dad was always looking for junior college jobs. So there was an opening in 29 Palms, California. So you thought Yuma was bad, spend your high school in 29 Palms, California.
Yeah.
So the only thing that kept me sane, living, 5 miles outside of town in Yuma in an old adobe house by myself with my crazy brother and sister, was I learned how to drum.
Oh, okay.
So I got into music through drumming. I actually started probably in 5th or 6th grade. My brother brought an old drum set home that my parents had got from some flea market at the church or something. Put it all together. My brother started playing it, kind of lost interest. Guess who, took over, right? Got really good at it. So I kind of got into drumming, just learning how to do it, right? Never really had any classes. And I started getting in the high school band, that stage band, that whole thing. So
we talked a bit about who Kris is, and you've heard his background. Now you are also the owner, and is it the right terminology by saying founder of Red Light Fever Studios?
Yeah, that makes it sound like an institution.
Okay, so he's
it's
the
kind
owner.
of recording studios kind of take huge change in the last 20 years. Used to be big commercial facilities with high-end, unique equipment. We looked at some of them earlier today at the NAMM show. We were talking about, we were looking at Trident consoles, we looked at Neve consoles yesterday, solid state Logic, all these high-end, and every album you've ever heard of has been recorded on these high-end British consoles, right? Super expensive, running in the millions of dollars. Well, when computers came around, that leveled the playing field. All of a sudden, people could do home recordings themselves. They didn't need to go to these $200 an hour studios. They could do a lot of it at home. Sometimes they'd want to do the drums or the orchestra still, and those studios still exist, but a lot of them closed down because of Pro Tools and powerful computers, and Logic, which is the software I use use. And we looked at some of those booths today. We were
Right.
just in the Steinberg,
Yes.
the Cubase, which is the first software I started with. That's a whole nother interview, all the versions of software and computer problems I've had over the years. That's a whole nother thing. But anyway, that kind of leveled the playing field. So all these big companies are now having to create things for the home market because that's where recording is spread out to. The musicians started recording themselves, putting their own albums out on, Apple Music, Spotify, all these things, bypassing the record companies. A lot of them have lost a ton of money and gone out. So the internet and powerful computers has really changed the music industry a lot.
Of course. Now, what was that aha moment for you that made you create this home studio?
Well, when you're a drummer and you're in, high school bands, and I got to the point where we were playing clubs in LA with a couple of different versions of bands, and I still occasionally play with people the last few years in different clubs and venues and stuff. You always want to capture what you're doing, especially when you're a young musician. You want to write your own songs, right? That's the thing. You want to be the next Van Halen, the next Black Sabbath. Back then, it was like, well, we've written these songs. How do we get them to our fans? You're doing recordings in your garage with crappy mics and equipment,
Right.
with old cassette decks. You don't have overdubbing because they didn't have multiple track recording. You usually borrow your friend's cassette deck, play live, mix it with this one to overdub the vocals. I mean, it was like the technology just wasn't there.
Yeah.
So that's how you get into recording. It's like, well, how do they get that sound? How do they make their drums sound so good? The drums on the recordings don't sound like my drums in my room. Why is that? Well, when I finally got to college and I was at San Francisco State University, they had an audio department, film and audio, and they actually had a recording studio there. And I was able to take classes, and I said, the microphone that you stick in front of the drum, the type of microphone, how close you put it, these fancy equalizers, these reverbs and effects, the room that it's in, how you tune the drums, all these studio tricks I learned. You don't think about that when you're a kid just listening to the album, you just like the way it sounds, right? So I learned so much, especially at San Francisco State. That's where I really got some technical training on audio and how it worked. Took a couple of summer classes, a couple of classes during the semester, so that started it all. From there I realized, this drumming gig is kind of, maybe I'll make it, maybe I won't, maybe I'll be the next rock star I go, but doing audio stuff, there's always bands, every generation, they want to record, right?
Sure.
So my goal was to always have a home studio, especially when it became possible. So when my partner and I finally got our house and we started remodeling it, we bought it, foreclosure. It was basically boarded up. You've been to the house.
Yeah,
It's
it's beautiful house.
it's turned into a whole thing, a giant, 20-year art project. But there's just the two of us. It was a 2-bedroom house. It's like, well, what are we going to do with this lower bedroom that we're not going to use? Boom, recording studio. So as we were remodeling it and gutting it, what is my control room now used to be like a hallway, and we took out a walk-in closet. We reconfigured that whole area down there for studio, knowing it was going to be a studio.
Right.
You've seen that big rack of equipment right where I sit. That was just a wall. We broke out the closet, made it specifically known I was going to have a rack of equipment there.
Right.
So that's kind of the home studio thing started.
That's
So
awesome.
it's been going on for quite a while.
So you not only had the passion, but you made the passion happen, and you're living that dream. And I think that's what for me. It's this is why I wanted to have you on specifically, because obviously to pick your brain at some of the technology that's out there, and just to get the entrepreneur part on, so that we can get people to understand how to start a home business, but also because you made that passion happen. And for my listeners and my viewers, we talk a lot about entrepreneurship. We talk a lot about going after your dreams, and really just having that aha moment, that epiphany that makes you kind of light that fire under you to make that dream happen. And I think that's why I was so drawn to you, not only because you are the audio engineer extraordinaire, I like to call you, but because you have the ability. You made the passion come alive, and you had the ability to do that. So I'm happy with that.
Nothing's easy, and
Well,
it's
of
not like
course.
I did it over a weekend.
Sure.
It's
been
I could go through the whole history of my studio, the equipment I started with versus what I have now.
Oh,
as the technology's changed.
Speaking of
Start
which,
with like an old Mac computer, old mixing boards, 2 little CRT monitors.
Right.
Now you've been to my computer. You see my studio, I have
Right.
high-end tube equipment, 4 giant monitors, a powerful computer. So like everybody's home studio, that's, there's thousands of people like me across the world that have home studios. we've grown with the technology. We've gotten better equipment as we've gotten better at doing our job of mixing.
Right. And
It's a process.
Super knowledgeable, because as we were walking the floor here at NAMM, every vendor that we would see, either he has had some sort of equipment from that vendor, and he could tell me like the history and how it's evolved.
Whether it's good or
yeah,
a
whether
piece
it's
of crap.
good. There you go. That's important.
Don't get that one.
That's-
I had that one. It fell apart.
That's awesome. So now let's talk about some of your clients and your artists, because I'm sure as being a home recording studio, you've seen kind of, an array of clients. Now, how do you get your clients, and what type of genres do you like best?
Well, I've been all over the place.
Okay.
I'm a rock drummer.
Okay.
So I'm a rock guy. A lot of times you meet people through whoever you've been playing with,
Okay.
right? I ran a few ads,
Oh, okay.
in the local, there's different local magazines, that you can put ads and stuff in. Some for free. They were free ads, right? I started working with this one artist who just saw my ad. Next thing you know, we're working on an EP for him. Next thing it turns into an album. Next thing, a few years later, I'm drumming in his band.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It can be kind of an organic thing. Then through him, I met other people, his circle of friends. So it's a lot of networking and
Sure.
talking. They would hear the demos of the songs and go, oh, wow, that sounds really good. Where did you do this recording? Next thing you know, they're calling me. I'd go to shows where he would go pass out my card, So I met a lot of people through that connection. Likewise with Sandwich Islands Network, cutting forward, there was a lot of bands and people in between. But I met Dan Lagronio, who's one of the uncles in Sandwich Island Networks. We work in our day jobs together.
Oh, okay.
He had a little ukulele band at the time, wanted to record, so he came over to the house, talked about me. Then he told me about the radio station and the technical problems they were having. They had lost their previous studio. So then I said, they actually invited me over to their house to help them set up their technical stuff. No offense to you guys, they're not technical guys, right? So I just said, it'll be way faster if you just come to my house and me do it than to try to teach you guys how to do it.
Right.
I have a feeling you'll be calling me every Saturday at 9 in the morning. How do we do this?
That's true. Oh, I had no idea. See,
Yeah.
this is kind of the neat thing about interviewing, is that I've uncovered nuggets and, behind the scenes. And if you know anything about me, you know that I love.
She loves the gossip.
I like to say behind the scenes.
I like to call it gossip. So anyway, they decided that was better. They came out. I said, just come to my studio one time, see if we like it. It was kind of centralized. Some of the people in Orange County, I know Kamako's like in
Sure.
Simi Valley or wherever he was, Dan's in the valley. All just converged there. They brought food. I go, well, they're going to bring food. They're going to come on in, right? We all had fun. We had a good time. And it's like 5 years later, we're still doing it, right?
That's awesome.
So then once that, this connection established, they started having house parties. I started going to all the festivals that Kamaka hosts. I start meeting and hearing these artists. I'm thinking, oh, pass out my card to these people, right?
Very nice, yeah.
Next thing you know, we just finished Alissa Hunnicutt's EP. We just did the Lee Sisters EP.
Yes.
Working with Kimo Williams. We're talking about doing a Christmas CD for
There
the
you
Sandwich
go.
Island Network. So we did the 808.
Yes.
We did probably half of the
Yes.
songs from the California 808 were recorded in our studio. All the rest were mastered. People submitted their already finished songs.
Right.
Kamaka did a song with a great
That's
band. We did it
true.
all live. Ada Lagrimas Jr. drummed on it and did a ukulele. So it was just fun. This ended up being like, come on, all you musicians, come and jam and contribute
Right.
to this, this cause. I've met a lot of great people, had a lot of fun sessions. So.
Do you have one favorite genre specifically that you like to?
Well, I will admit it here. I don't go home and listen to Hawaiian music. It's not my thing. I like it. I like the way it sounds. I'm learning to appreciate the subtleties of it
Right.
and the artistry of it, especially the Lee Sisters.
Right.
I joke there. I go, you're like the Eddie Van Halen of ukulele.
Oh my gosh. I have to say that I'm going to link the Lee Sisters. I'm going to do a shameless plug here. I'm going to link the Lee Sisters, who was produced in Kris's studio. But the Lee Sisters, I'll link their information down in the description box for you guys to hear. It's an EP, so there's 4 songs.
Four
on
songs,
there,
yeah.
And they've written it all. So
It's all instrumental.
all
but,
instrumental.
But they're all each
Yeah.
song's different. The goal is to, if you're only going to do 4 songs, you want each one to sound a little bit different, so it doesn't
Yeah.
sound like the person just sat there strumming
Sure.
the same tone.
Sure.
So that was the challenge. And, ukuleles are a challenge to a recording artist because they're a small instrument. They have a small sound.
Very true.
They're in the kind of the same frequency range of the voice, especially talking about Alissa Hunnicutt. she has a female, very strong voice with this little teeny instrument that's in the same frequency range. Like, how am I going to make her voice not fight with this, make it sound full? So we added some cello on one thing, we added a little snare drum, you know, we had her double some of the ukulele, her soprano and her concert one, just to make it sound different. We had some sound effects to one song she had done. So you don't want the person to put it on and listen to one song, the next song sounds exactly like the first one exactly. You want to make it a little variety. So each song is like, oh, what's a little bit different about this one?
So how much input do you have when it comes to record or to mastering and mixing and whatnot? Like, for instance, like you just do a recording, you know, of the instrument and vocalist, say, and then when you're mixing or mastering or whatever you're doing, like I don't even know the terminology, but what you do, how much of that input do you say to them? You know, it would sound nice if we do this.
Depends on the artist. That's a loaded question. And, you know, every
Sure.
audio recording magazine asks that same question of the producer, especially the established ones that have been working with artists for years and years. There's people that are simply an engineer. They're paid to just do the technical part. There's a separate producer who works with the band and decides the songs, the sounds, the instrumentation, all that stuff. Of course, I'm everything in that situation. Though sometimes the artists may have very strong opinions about what they like and don't like. If they've been in the studio a lot, let's talk about Alissa Hunnicutt. She was a little more experienced than, say, the Lee sisters, who are fairly new to recording because they're younger, right? Alissa's been doing Broadway shows, live shows. She had a very specific sound of how she wanted her voice to sound, especially. She, first thing out of her mouth, I don't want a lot of gimmicky reverb. I don't want this to sound like karaoke. So you can't just stick a microphone this close to somebody when they're singing it and it won't sound natural, because these microphones pick up so close, you're not going to hear the natural room sound, which people are used to hearing. So I had to put her voice in a room to make it sound so it's not just dry and sterile sounding. So we experimented with a lot of different reverbs, and of course all these digital reverbs that are part of the software. You can make giant rooms, small rooms, wet rooms, dry rooms, the tone.
I had no idea.
You can check, there's infinite amount of reverbs. You know, people don't, you're interested in recording at all. Reverb's a huge thing to audio recording. You put it on piano, you put it on guitar, you put it on voice, you put it on a snare drum will have a different reverb than the toms. You know, reverb's a huge deal. All the keyboards have reverbs. It's the sound of the room. It's like if you go into your shower and you clap your hands, you hear that decay, that's reverb. If you go in a parking garage and you clap your hands, you'll hear the concrete reverberation. It's that tail, that ringing of the sound afterward. And it's in every song, every album you've ever heard. Most people don't realize what it is, but it shapes the sound. It's a huge thing.
So it's case by case, it's artist by artist.
And she wanted a clean sound that sounded natural, but without gimmicky, with a long, Celine Dion. Listen to Celine Dion. She's got this long, flowery, long reverb, really high-pitched and shimmering sound. That's her sound. It works for her. Alissa Hunnicutt did not want that at all. So we found a good one. I found the parameters. She loved it. It sounded natural to me. It wasn't gimmicky. We saved it, so I can save the parameters. Alissa Hunnicutt reverb. So we used it on that same setting on all her songs to get that consistency from song to song. The magic of digital is it remembers everything. You know, you can create things and then create it, copy and paste it onto your next song. Likewise with the Lee sisters, I did a mix for them using a reverb, and they didn't like it. When they listened, it sounds too tinny. It's not how that's not how they imagine their instrument. And they're not super experienced. This is their first EP. So there's a few emails going back and forth. Well, I don't like this, I don't like that. You know, I was sending mixes through the email, right? Because they live, you know, in a different town. I go, look, let's come in. Basically told them the same story. Reverb's everything. I have millions of them to choose from. You can't just, we haven't worked enough together to really know what you want. You have to hear it and tell me that's what you want.
Got it.
So we spent a whole day just kind of auditioning. Would you like this sound, that sound? They go, that's what we like. Once you get it, you save it, and then you use it on your other songs. So.
Wow, I had no idea the technology. So I'm learning something new, you guys. So for my listeners and my viewers.
And everybody else is falling asleep going, we don't want to listen to this. Who cares about reverb?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so we talked a little bit about, you know, the type of music.
Just to answer your question, since I went off on a tangent on reverb, I do production. Like, I probably suggested more stuff using the Lee sisters as an example, since they've been on your show. Because they were new to the studio. I go, how about this? How about that? As we were doing the arrangements, because I have more experience. I've heard a lot of different recordings. I kind of know what works and doesn't work. I go, let's try this.
Right.
Worst case, if it doesn't work, we mute it. It's there. We'll never use it. That's the magic of multi-track recording. You can add things and put them on their own tracks. If it doesn't work, you push a button and it turns it off. You know, so it doesn't. You can experiment a lot. It's not like you're damaging anything. It's all there. You can add and take things away.
So with it, and then a more experienced artist will, you know, he or she may have something in mind, like you said with Alissa, and then you just kind of go based on what they're feeling.
And you know, I've made suggestions with Alissa. She did this one song called San Francisco, and it's about, if you listen to the words of the song, it's about somebody jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of a dreary song. And the parts kind of similar. I go, well, what if we opened it up? Just kind of thought about, what if we had a sound effect of, if you were standing on the edge of the Golden Gate Bridge and cars were going by with a foghorn, because I lived in San Francisco, went to San Francisco Sky. I go, what would that? Maybe we should have that and then have the song come in. So I found some sound effects online, added it in, did kind of a mix, did a little bit of effect in the middle with her voice, and it's kind of like that person that was jumping's mind with some filtering and reverb. Send her the mix. She goes, I love this. That's perfect. So it's just kind of, so you contribute, because, you know, you steal an idea from somebody else's song that you heard 20 years ago and you apply it to this and it works.
Right.
She loved it. So I make those kind of suggestions, something the artist may not have thought of. What about we try this? What about this? What about this? I feel that's kind of my job, to suggest ways where I think it'll be better. They always have control. They don't like it, we don't use it. It's their project, right?
Yeah. Perfect.
But that's, you try to be a little collaborative and try to throw out things that they may not have thought of. Because they're focusing on their performance, they're focusing on the song. My job is to step back, the bigger picture. I try to think of myself as the listener to this final product.
Right.
What are they going to think? Are they going to get bored? Am I getting bored listening to these four songs in a row that all sound the same? How can I keep the interest? Present this people's material in the best light to keep the most amount of excitement.
Now, as an audio engineer, what's the best part of your job? Like, what do you like that, you know, hands down, you're like, oh, that's my favorite thing to do?
I like the recording part is fun, but it's kind of tense.
Okay.
Because, you know, there's anxiety, the artist, they don't want to screw up. All right, we are rolling. Take number 5. There's that. That's why I call it red light fever. That's the joke.
Really?
Red light fever is in the audio industry. It's like, oh, he got red light fever. He was fine when you were rehearsing. And the minute you say, okay, take 1 and push the red light, the button and the light. We were just looking at those things that are red that say recording.
On air. Yeah.
So it's the recording light that turns red, and they call it red light fever when the guy starts screwing up or whoever's recording.
I had no idea.
Because they're nervous, because they're really recording now. It's not the rehearsal or the practice. So it's called red light fever.
Awesome.
So I read that in an interview. I think, oh, that's a great name for a recording studio.
So now, wait, that's your favorite part?
That's the most challenging part. That's probably my least favorite.
Okay, so
it's like getting all the takes. Once you get everybody's happy with their performance, the tension's off. Now it's like, now we can step back and start mixing it.
Okay.
So you can hear the finished product.
Got it.
And sometimes, you know, the artists sometimes want to be there while I'm mixing.
Right.
Sometimes they think it's all over with and they just leave. I'm like, all right, I'll do a mix and then I'll email it to you. So I'll do my magic, EQing, adding the effects, compressing, whatever, and I'll send it to them and it'll sound completely different than what they heard. And they'll either go, wow, that's great, I love it, or they'll go, well, that's too much, no, I don't like this or that.
Got it. Okay.
So the mixing part's fun, because that's really when you polish the product and come up with that finished sound.
I would think so. Sometimes in video shooting or audio recording, whatever it may be, and then I go back to editing, even though it's very daunting, yes, I do agree with that, in that, you know, when you start to get, you know, the ideas start pouring in, you go, oh, you know, what would sound good is this and this and that. You know, I have the luxury of kind of, you know, being my own, you know, producer and engineer and whatnot, and then sometimes if I get a second, third party to hear it, they'll, you know, chime in and say, well, you know, sound this. I rarely do that anymore because I'm like, wait a minute, this is my podcast. But
well, I can't say that with the artist.
No, but I get that. I like that you have that, you know, they trust you enough to, you know, give them the best piece of advice, and because you've been doing this for so long, you can kind of, it's almost like being in their shoes, and you can kind of envision what the sound that they're going after. Well,
that's the ultimate thing, when you get it where they like it, and they, you know, they've heard themselves playing it a million times.
Sure.
A lot of people have never heard their instrument mic'd closely with a really good mic to a really good preamp, played back to really good speakers.
Right.
They just hear, or sometimes even their own voice. Like Alissa Hunnicutt, who's super experienced, when she heard her voice played back with all my fancy stuff, she goes, God, I love this. This is I just want to do this all the time. You know, she just loved it. She thought it sounded fantastic. The combination of the mics we were using, and the preamp and the reverb.
Right.
Oh, that's exactly the way I want it to sound.
Yeah.
So them hearing themselves the way they like it is very rewarding for me. They're now hearing their vision, their goal. You know, even people who, and I've worked with a lot of acts that aren't even that great of musicians, never recorded much. This is still their first experience, and it's still sounding better than they've ever heard themselves.
Right.
Even though I don't necessarily like it or don't think it sounds good, they do.
They do, yeah.
And I always have a saying, look, I never want to SHIT on anybody's dream. If they think it sounds good and they like it, I still get pleasure out of it just because I'm making them happy.
Right.
They're hearing whatever it is, bad as I may think it is, in some new light that they've never heard it before, and it's exciting to them.
Do you see why I say he's the audio engineer extraordinaire? That's why. Because
and you've never even heard my stuff before.
You know? Maybe we'll play a little sample of
Maybe you
somebody's.
should.
Yeah.
Maybe Alissa Hunnicutt.
There you go. I'll play a little sample
That
of
San
hers.
Francisco song is my favorite.
Okay.
Or the first one.
All right.
The first one's good.
This will probably be a really good time to hear one of that right now.
Yes.
They say that home is where the heart is. I guess I haven't found my home. And are we there yet?
Now, for parting words of wisdom, what advice can you give young people who want to go into a career of audio engineering, recording? They want to produce and manage their own recording studio. What kind of advice can you give to them? Come to NAMM, first of all.
Come to NAMM. You learn a lot at NAMM.
Yes,
you can
you
see all
will.
the equipment. You can see tons of demos here. The NAMM shows are great.
For sure.
Of course, it's not easy to get into a NAMM
Yeah,
show. It's
that's
not like
true.
open to the public. But if you have the opportunity, just come and see what's available. Because
Right.
there's everything you can imagine.
Right.
Recording software, demos, artists, your famous art. There's a great magazine called Tape Op Magazine. It's free.
Okay. What is it called?
Tape Op.
Tape Off.
Op. O-P.
Tape
TAPE/op.
Ah,
Or like
okay.
tape operator. That's
Okay.
where it comes from. Free magazine. The guy Larry Crane, who's the publisher, I actually met him last year here at NAMM.
Okay.
They get all their revenue from their ads, and it's a lot of these vendors here at NAMM. Great articles from people in small studios, big. He started as a kind of do-it-yourself recording magazine. Of course, 15, 20 years later, it's grown.
Right.
But he's got great articles. People out there's a forum where you can write in and ask questions and
Very nice.
reader stuff. I read it cover to cover. That's my favorite audio magazine, and it's free. How can you beat that,
There
right?
you go.
So read
that-
magazines. That's good. If there's any classes at your JC that are low cost, I know Pasadena City College here in LA has a recording department. You can go to Musicians Institute, places like that. They have audio programs. They're very expensive. There's a lot of private audio colleges. I happen to go to San Francisco State and get the basics, which was very helpful. You hear the theory of recording. You learn about all this stuff. If you have an opportunity, depends on how much money you have, that would be a good thing. Actually, I was here at one of the NAMM booths. I think Alan Parsons
Okay.
from Alan's
Yeah,
Parsons
yeah.
project mixed and engineered Dark Side of the Moon from Pink Floyd.
Ah.
He has a whole online recording training program where you actually get master tapes of his and you load it into your audio software, Logic or Pro Tools or Cubase or Nuendo or Sonar or whatever you have, and you can mix down one of his well-recorded sessions and play around with the mixing. Actually, lynda.com, that educational,
Yes, I heard about that.
they
yes.
have a whole great series of recording stuff. I took the Logic's one. They have general recording classes, and you can see the guy mixing. There was one for Pro Tools, and then I think there was one for Logic's. I took that series of the one specifically for Logic's.
Okay.
But he's giving you recording theory too, and tips and tricks, and how to use all these different plugins and devices. Very helpful. So if you don't have access, if you're just at home, you don't have access to a high-end class or a school, the internet's full of stuff.
Yeah, I was just going to say
Yeah.
that you could, probably find a couple of
Lynda.com,
DIYs.
what are they, like $9 a month or
I think
19?
so,
They're,
yeah.
they're cheap for the amount, and you can just take unlimited classes.
Yeah,
They got classes on all kinds of software stuff.
there you go.
Yeah.
So you
So
can
lynda.com is good.
find stuff online, or or hey, you guys, if
And
you
books.
just-
There's a lot of books on recording too.
but let's not rule out that Mr. Kris Traynor himself is also available for your audio engineering needs, recording studio needs. There you go.
One thing is, it's hard enough to learn your instrument, hard enough to learn how to sing, hard enough to put a band together. A lot of musicians, see these softwares at these shows. They go, "Oh, I can do this at home."
Right.
Not knowing the technique of recording, I won't share the embarrassing story of you talking into the wrong side of your microphone.
Yeah, let's not do that.
We won't talk about that. But I'm just saying that as an example. You have to know how to use the equipment, right?
Yeah.
So if you're at home and you buy all these kits and you don't know how to use it, it's almost like having to learn another instrument all over again.
Right.
And it can be a distraction from learning your instrument or writing
That's right.
songs.
That's
All of a
right.
sudden you get so involved in trying to do this recording yourself that you lose track of writing the music. Sometimes
Right.
it's better to just think of a recording engineer as that fourth or fifth person in your band and let them worry about it so you can concentrate. Your brain can't do two things at once. You can't be creative and then be stressing out over the recording part of it.
So let the pro handle it.
Let the pros
There
handle
you
it.
go.
Yeah, you'll probably get better results.
Kris,
And
thank
less
you.
grief.
Thank you so much
Well, thank
for
you.
being on my show.
You're
I really
welcome.
appreciate it. For all of those who have just joining us and have heard, go back and listen to the rest of it from the start. Kris Traynor, who is an audio engineer and the owner of Red Light Fever Studios in Tahunga.
Beautiful Tahunga, which is north of
Beautiful
Glendale, and
Tahunga,
I
yeah.
know you're thinking, where is that?
Yes, for sure. You might want to take a look at his website.
Yes, redlightfeverproductions.com.
There you go.
Has everything on there. And listen to Annie's prior podcast with both Alissa Hunnicutt and the Lee sisters. I'm prominently mentioned, but don't think about that. But you get to hear them talk about their albums.
Yes,
too.
and you also get
So
to
you hear the artist's point of view.
And you get to hear a little small snippet of each one of their songs
Yes,
too.
too.
Yeah,
So there you go.
Take a listen and jump on.
And I have to shamelessly plug them both because they're my friends.
There you go. Well, that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here on Annie Talks. I really enjoyed talking with Kris Traynor. Like I said, he's the audio engineer extraordinaire in my book, in everybody's book, because that's why we keep asking him for like all these wonderful, professional opinions and whatnot. So, and why do you think he has all these people coming to his studio for recording? It's because he truly is the audio extraordinaire, audio engineer extraordinaire. Thanks again.
And my rates are reasonable.
Yes, definitely. And if you haven't already subscribed to Annie Talks, do that. Hit the subscribe button down below. And if you're listening,
And share with your friends.
that's right. And if you're listening to the podcast for the first time, hit that subscribe button, everybody, so that anytime we upload a new episode, you all will be notified. Thanks again so much for tuning in. We'll see you in my next recording. Bye-bye.